think so. Oh, we stick that on here.
Can.
True rock star I am.
We can hold. Give it a good push.
Hi everybody. Nice to see you all today. It's a very nice building we're in. I feel like I should be on my best behaviour, so please keep me in check. So I'm going to talk a little bit today. Some of you will have seen this content before, and I hope I'm sort of reinforcing some messages. I just want to talk to you today about sort of Google's involvement here, for those of you who are not aware, and kind of where we sort of see things going over the next into 2024 and obviously onwards and upwards from there. So from a Google perspective, we have a mission basically with regards to messaging, and it's around enabling reliable, helpful and safe messaging and supporting our partners in the carrier messaging ecosystem. So Google are very much bought into this, and we have been for several years. And just to go through some of this, I thought I'd put a little time plan together. Now actually, the whole story on RCS starts way before 2016. But I'm not going to sort of cover that. Anyone who's interested, find me in a pub later and we can talk about that over a couple of beers. But going back to 2016, Google got involved with RCS, and we acquired a company called Jive, many of you will be familiar with, and we still operate the service as a Jive service or RCS service. And we were invited by the GSMA, a number of their carriers, to help, if you like, keep carrier messaging relevant, I think is the term I like to use. And so we've been in this game for a few years. Just stepping on into 2017 is actually a time I joined Google, beginning of 2017, and the first RCS universal profile was published. So that was quite a big step. There had been various different guises of this in the past that hadn't quite got off the ground. The universal profile is the one that's with us now, and we're actually in version 2.4 of that. So it's been progressing quite nicely. In 2018, we saw the first full carrier interconnect, multiple back-end solutions, and we started to see, is this working?
Sorry, everyone wants to hear it.
Oh, sorry, I thought this was working.
No, it is, but it's just, so it just.
Push a button.
It's
Sorry
all,
about this.
sorry, but it's just maybe lean in.
Maybe lean in.
Do you
Okay.
have a microphone? Sorry. I just know that everyone's so eager to hear.
Can everybody, is that better? Is that better? I'm just going to swap this over because hopefully this still works. Take that. Right. Hopefully that's a bit better for everybody. So I was just saying, Google has sort of been involved with RCS for some time now. And we entered the sort of market, if you like, entered the ecosystem around 2016. And in 2017, we saw the RCS universal profile published, which is fast forwarding to now, is in now version 2.4. In 2018, we saw the first interconnects of carriers coming on board. So we started to see RCS traffic flow between various carriers more than it had been in the previous years. And in 2019, from an Android perspective, we made RCS a mandatory part of the Android build. So OEMs had to start shipping RCS support in their devices, which kind of helped to speed things up in terms of getting that out to all of our Android users. In 2020, some of you may remember that we launched our first sort of RCS cloud, if you like, global cloud. We started this in 2020 in a few key markets, Mexico, Brazil, in Latin America, and the UK and France and Spain in the UK. And this is where things really started to pick up. We've had some good years there. Obviously, COVID was an interesting time for all of us. And it did delay things a little bit, I think. We saw a massive uptick, though, in SMS, in messaging. And I think some of Nick's presentations he's shown in the past have sort of showed what happened there. And it kept the messaging kind of piece very, 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 very relevant. Earlier this year, we saw strategic alignment, if you like, through carriers and OEMs. So from a messaging perspective, we've had all the key carriers sort of globally on board to support RCS, start with plans to support RBM, and we see all of our Android partners shipping a compatible RCS-enabled messaging application with their phones. And obviously the big news, which is on lots of people's lips in the past couple of weeks, Apple have announced that they're going to support RCS at some point next year. So we've gone from a very small amount of subscribers or users of RCS, about 40 million back in 2016. We're well over 1 billion users now. And we sort of predict with Apple coming on board that as we get towards the end of next year, we should have doubled that number. So in terms of reach, that's going to be fantastic. And that really keeps carrier messaging really, really relevant. Because as we've just seen in some of the presentations earlier today and from upstream, those rich channels are what brands want, what the customers expect. And if the carrier ecosystem doesn't offer that, then brands and businesses will go elsewhere. And that's a real reality. And Nick Lane's presentation earlier this morning really showed that, highlighting WhatsApp in 2026 and 2017 as being starting to become a really significant channel. And I think that with the news of Apple joining the RCS game, we're going to see maybe a slightly different curve there, but we will obviously have to wait and see. So I put this little thing up. I don't think you'll be hearing Google talk about green bubbles and blue bubbles for much longer. That is generally resolved, I would say. So we should be sort of working in harmony now with Apple, and we're looking forward to this relationship sort of budding and growing as we go through next year. So this year has been a really good year for us for the ecosystem. From a Google perspective, as I talked about, we announced that we would hit 1 billion users this year, and we've done that. And we're nicely over that figure now. We had a number of key announcements through the year, starting the year at CES, going at our I/O conference that we have in Mountain View back in May. We talked about RCS that had a spotlight there. So it's something that is very close to Google's heart and has a lot of executive sponsorship behind it. We've made some changes for the user experience. We've made some changes to Google Messages. We've made it very clear, as you can see in the bottom here, that RCS is available to users. And it's very encouraging to hear sort of friends and family and other colleagues say to me, oh, I've been using RCS recently. I can see it in my input screen when I'm sending messages. And so it's starting to become more on people's conscience that is there. I think one of the other big things that's happened this year is around that carrier alignment piece. So we've got carriers that are aligned. They're aligned on RCS. They're aligned on RBM. And they're starting to, or they're definitely down the road now of making sure that there's a single platform that's available for developers and aggregators to use to ease that transition into the channel. I think this is really, really an important piece because we've seen where fragmentation in the past has really hindered progress. And when we can remove that fragmentation, we start to see things really start to fly. And we've got some colleagues in the room from the channel partners today who've really mastered this and are really good at getting SMS traffic into the RCS channel and providing that upgraded experience for the end user and also for those brands and businesses that want to deliver a great RBM experience. So from an RBM sort of growth perspective, we've seen some great growth in India, Mexico, France, Spain, and in Brazil, and a number of other countries as well. This chart is slightly out of date. I need to wait for a couple of days to update this, but as you can see, we've seen a real uptick in both revenue and monetized messages. We're seeing over 1 billion messages shipping now in India. We're seeing a massive uptick in Brazil and Mexico. I'm very encouraged to see things moving forwards in the UK as well as in France and in Spain. We've seen a massive uptick as we've had about 15 new brands in the last few weeks just start to ship their messages, start to convert SMS to RBM to branded message formats. And that is really sort of start to see things grow. And of course, the benefit to that of the end user is getting a much better experience, but very importantly, the brand is getting a much better experience in terms of what they're able to offer to their customer base. So back to that alignment piece, I've used the UK as an example here. As we're in the UK, I change this when I go to different countries. But in the UK, you can see that we've got the 4 key carriers and their MVNO partners, they are all aligned on this. And they've got a go-to-market plan now going into 2024. You can start to expect them to be supporting the sort of auto upgrade, as we like to call it, of SMS into a branded message. Branded basic message are the same thing. It's quite simply, if you're going to send an SMS, that goes across the RBM channel. It's verified by the mobile network operator, and it carries the brand logo in there. So it gives great consumer confidence to the user that they're getting a message from who they expect it to be from, and it starts to really differentiate spam and fraudulent smishing activities from the real thing. So it's a real uplift there in that experience, and is actually really helping to educate us all in terms of what we should be expecting to see and what we should definitely be ignoring and sort of kicking into the trash if it hasn't already entered your spam mailbox. So this is obviously a massively big thing, coupled with Apple coming on board. We expect to see 2024 be a really big deal. From an ecosystem perspective, massive amount of channel partners out there. I'm very sorry if your brand's not on here. I tried very hard to make sure we've included everybody. We'll make sure it's added if they're not. But as you can see, a myriad of different players around the world who've all embracing the channel. And I think one of the key things now is that because we've got Apple coming on board, because as we get through 2024, the carrier messaging, using the carrier messaging channel is going to be able to deliver a much better experience, a modern day, safe, feature-rich experience. That is the channel to use. And we're basically going to build upon what's there in SMS. So there's 5 billion enabled customers today that can receive an SMS. We're going to have around half of that, I should think, by the time we go into the back end of 24 and 2025. So it really helps to make carrier messaging relevancy really stand up. And we expect to see, a lot of traffic start to move. The call to action here really, sort of speaking on behalf of the ecosystem, is this RBM first. So the new sort of gold standard for sending a message should be the verified and branded message. SMS will always be there as the backup. We have no expectation it will suddenly disappear, but it would be the backup where an RCS message can't be delivered. And of course, you get a great experience building on this when you start to go into the more richer conversational experiences that really start to drive revenue, and we start to see multiple factors of improvement when it comes to return on investment and value of what's actually shipping through the channel. So it's really about now is the time to accelerate. I think if you're not doing so already as a channel partner, you're not starting to embrace RCS, I would really encourage you to start doing that and make sure that by the time Apple are with us through 2024, you've got all of your processes and procedures ironed out and you're able to really already be hit the ground running, and there's no stumbling as suddenly we start to see a big uptick of RCS users in the base. It's going to be really exciting year, I think. Google are very much involved, and we have a big plan to kind of keep investing in the experience, working very closely with Apple and working very closely with all of you. And it's really at that time too, as Jan said with RCS World last month, it's really the time to accelerate now, and we expect to see really, really good things coming in 2024. So I can take any questions. I think James has got a few primed you want to ask me. And
well, I could keep you here for an hour. We've got loads of questions online. We're going to have loads of questions from the room. But in the interest of time, we're going to be taking 2 online. We're going to be taking 2 from the room. But before we get there, have a drink. We don't want you to die of thirst and expire before answering these questions. There are still loads of mobile operators around the world who have been sitting on the sidelines now. What would you say to them?
I would say that if you're not embracing this already, now is really the time to do so. I can totally understand the hesitation in the ecosystem if only what is seen as only half of the base is addressable. It's actually a bit of a misnomer, because if you think about every pound or dollar or euro that you spend, if you get a better increase on that, even if you're only hitting a small proportion of your customer base, it's still a good move. And I think Nick is always refer to Nick because he has some great content and some great forecasts with this. But I think he's shown in the past, actually, the messaging channel is a much wider audience than you get, say, from a TV slot in the evening, or from a radio advert, or from print press, or from online advertising. And now that's just going to get even better, even bigger and even better. So if as a carrier you're not yet engaged on this and sort of moving forwards, now is definitely the time to be doing so. So that when we get into next year, it's all systems go, and it's not kind of like caught in the headlights and thinking, what do I have to do, and trying to get things built and up and running.
Fantastic. Now, in my past 3 years here at MEF, one country where I see the mobile operators truly working together on so many different levels. Of course, there's some good work in the UK and Brazil and many other countries, but the country that for me personally stands out is Germany. So I have the pleasure of looking after the payment side of MEF, working with Ross here on the direct carrier billing. And if you look at Germany, all the operators together have combined with a united front, with a united tagline, with a united logo. And when it comes to going to trade fairs, it could be gaming trade fairs or anything. When you're talking about offering direct carrier billing as a payment mechanism, all operators stand together on the same booth, using the same tagline, using the same logo, and they combine resources to essentially have a marketing budget. Are there any countries, Tim, where you have actually seen mobile operators come together like that in unison when it comes to business messaging, in particular RBM, to that extent, unify? And what would you say to mobile operators around the world who are clearly competing hard against each other, but this really is now an absolute golden opportunity? Should they be following the likes of the German operators with how they're approaching direct carrier billing?
Yeah, so it was a really good question, and thanks for highlighting Germany. As you say, they are working in harmony. They're a very galvanized team. They meet regularly, they get together regularly publicly, and they've got a number of assets which represent carrier messaging and
but they've actually got the website, RCS business messaging.de, I think.
They do. They also have a very simple pricing model. Obviously, there's some different regulations in different countries around the world, so things will vary a little bit, but they've got a great pricing model which makes things very, very simple. Take a look at that on their website if you're not aware of it already. That really, really helps. It makes it very easy for channel partners, those that are selling onto a brand. It's very easy then to price this for a brand rather than having sort of a menu of different prices that they have to deal with. They've just got one. And that works really, really well. That's not about collusion, by the way. This is a regulated channel
exactly.
there, so it's slightly different. Yeah. But I think those models, the price to one side, supporting those models outside of Germany, we see the basic message, which is on par with SMS. And then we see the single message and the conversation being those premium price points. But that premium price does deliver a much bigger and better return on investment. And, one would expect, I think I said this about 2 or 3 years ago, if you went to your department store, wherever you buy TVs from now, you wouldn't be expecting to buy an old cathode ray CRT TV, that supports analog, terrestrial telly. You'd expect it to be buying a 4K widescreen TV. Actually, I think you'd be hard pushed to buy the former. And that's what we expect. And that's what the industry, the planet expects to see in messaging. They expect to see a great experience there. They expect to know who's delivering that message, that it is who they say they are, and it has a key form of functionality. Back to your point about other markets that are doing this, absolutely. We see this happening in the UK. So some of my colleagues here will be chatting later, no doubt. See Claudine and Catherine's here. The UK operators, they're all working together. In France, the French operators are working really nicely together. In Spain, they're working nicely together. We have some kickoff events that will be happening in Spain in January, going into the year and bringing the ecosystem in Spain together. Scandinavia as well. Scandinavian networks, you mentioned, James, that in the spring we were up there. They meet regularly, and we're just seeing the last of that carrier groups coming on board now. Also, I say the remainder, they're not last, but they're sort of aiming to join that.
Have they signed party with you?
I won't go into the details on that, but that's all happening. It's very encouraging to see. So we're getting that harmony. But back to your point about the sort of competition within the carriers, I think that will always be the case. Carriers are going to want to get as much traffic. They're going to want to have the brands using them. But ultimately, the brand's customer is across all of the carriers. And if the carriers don't make this work, and as we can see in Germany and other countries, India is another good example, Mexico and Brazil another good example. If the carriers don't work together to make it successful, to have a great onboarding process, verification process, of which we're assisting where we can in that, if that doesn't happen, alternative channels will be chosen. And once you start to lose that traffic, it's very, very hard to get it back. And the whole idea is to keep carrier messaging relevant, keep it in the channel, and now we have the tools and the reach, or we will have the reach completed in a few months' time. Now is the time to really capitalize on that.
Fantastic. So we're going to go with 2 questions online first, Ross.
Yeah. Is this working? Yeah.
Yep, we can hear you fine.
So just picking the first 2, just to be fair. So first one, do you have any info whether Apple will also enable RBM?
I'm not going to comment too much on Apple. I'm going to just clarify what Apple have talked about. So Apple are going to support Universal Profile 2.4. Universal Profile 2.4 supports RBM. And
Thank
then
you.
you can take that.
You can surmise from that what you want. Thank you, Tim.
Perfect. We'll do maybe a non-Apple one. Given P2P RCS messages bypass MNO's firewalls and are E2EE, what spam phishing preventions are in place for the consumers?
Yeah, so thanks for raising that. I'll be sort of transparent here. We have seen a little uptick, if you like, in some spam and some smishing activity. But I'm very pleased to say that we've got on top of that. We've worked closely with a number of carriers actually who've helped us to identify that. And we have a great toolkit that Google has building on expertise we have from other channels to actually use intelligence both on the server side and intelligence on the handset itself through the messages application, where although it's end-to-end encrypted because it's dealt with on the phone, we actually have a lot more capability. And so we've suppressed a lot of that. We have seen, and it's started to flatline a bit, and I hope drop. We have seen some misuse of the P2P channel. We have seen some business messaging being sent across that. That's clearly actually an abuse of our terms of service for using that, and we are tackling that as well. But of course, if you do that, if a brand its messages is being sent across P2P, what it lacks the brand identity, and it lacks the verification. So it's seen as being potentially spam. It's often moved to the spam box, and we're seeing actually users report it as spam because you can do that in a message application on an Android phone. So it's really not the ideal channel to use, and it just highlights the benefit of using RBM and getting that brand verification.
That one-click reporting is very, very good.
Yeah.
But just two very, very questions. I know we've got Interpal here. Go for it. Interpal, could you just please speak into the microphone? Yeah, thank you.
Congrats for all the successes in 2023. One of the success you mentioned was aligning the entire industry to one client and one RBM platform, which has been responsible for some of this growth. Now, we are all very excited about Apple coming in. And that, of course, means there'll be now two clients, not one client. And would it also mean that we're back to now two platforms and the fragmentation of two RCS platforms? Or will the platform stay one? Is there any commentary you have on that?
Well, all I can say on that today is there will be more information on that as we go into next year on exactly how that's going to work.
And the follow-on that is, you talk about acceleration. When will RBM be available globally?
That's a great question. I mean, we've been working towards that. You're going to start to see more countries open up in terms of RCS is there. So RCS is available globally for Android users today. I say globally. Google don't operate in China, although there is RCS there. Japan have their own network, but generally outside of those markets and a couple of others, RCS is available for all Android users. Obviously, Apple will come on board, so we're going to see great reach across the majority of the smartphone base as everybody takes on that software update from Apple, which would be fantastic. And we're working very hard to open up more and more countries, and you can expect to see those come online in 2024, and we'll continue to communicate that to developers as those countries open up.
Excellent. Tim, thank you very much. And one more question we're going to have.
A quick one here. Yeah.
Can we just have Rami? Can we just have one of our members? Going to prioritize a member. I'm going to executive decision. Rami Riyad from.
I think a big question is Google right now with RCS. You're the verification authority when any RBM platform is launched. Do you guys think you're going to continue maintaining that with the number of operators joining the RBM community? So
on the verification point, if a carrier is not managing the traffic onto their network, Google will verify and approve that. We're not an authority, but we do that. So we go out and take the necessary checks. But this is a carrier messaging channel, carrier messaging ecosystem, and we expect the carriers to do that. And everywhere where a carrier is managing that traffic, they do that. We expect that to continue, and we expect that to become much, much wider. So you should expect to see Google maybe doing that verification less, and the actual network operator doing that in lieu of us. Yeah, so if you're on, Catherine and Claudia, we'll be able to show you today. If you're a customer on Virgin Media O2 or you're on EE or BT, when you receive an RBM message, you will see it's been verified by either network. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So lots of questions, whether it be from members, MEF personnel, absolutely everyone. Tim is not running away. His colleague John Shirley as well. They're not running away, or are they? We don't know.
No, we'll be around. Be around this
They're going to
afternoon.
be around. They're going to be around. So you can ask them plenty of questions. But thank you very much. But before lunch, Tim, thank you very much indeed. A round of applause for Tim.
Very much.